Welcome to another Spider-Man review. The other ones are available to read on my page if you would love to, but this is one for the video. This is a special video. This is the review for the 2002 Spider-Man directed by Sam Raimi. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing this review now? Well, I wanted to save it for something big, and I wanted to save it for something special. And that is why, in the tradition of saving things for something special, for this Spider-Man review, I wore a Batman t-shirt. Now, what makes this movie really special? Well, this movie came out in 2002. At the time, I was around 4. I had no interest in comic books whatsoever. I was into that phase. I was still into Lion King. And I do remember the day I went for this movie. I was sitting at the back of a car and I was tracing into an activity book of Lion King. And then we got to the theater. My dad stepped out, so did I, and my mom was there too, and we all got out and headed towards the theater. And I remember sitting there in the movie and I went to sleep. I was really tired. I used to sleep a lot in movies that time. And I remember getting up a bit into the movie. In one moment I remember seeing just one shot. This one. Yeah, I woke up to see one of the most iconic shots in the movie. When the movie later was hyped amongst my friends, etc., I was excited to see this movie. I wanted to see what this movie was about, and I wanted to see why people were loving it so much. So I went and bought the CD, and I remember the CD didn't work on the television. It was a CD which I bought like a little while later, and I got back home and it wouldn't work on the television. So in a move that I'm pretty sure my parents won't do today, they actually went all the way back to the store, got another copy, came back, and it was still not working. It ended up working only on the computer, and then I finally sat down and watched the movie, and when I saw it, I really loved it. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. It's still one of my favorite superhero movies, and it's a big movie for me in a lot of ways. So let's talk about Spider-Man. Now, it's been around 14 years since this movie came out. We're now 3 weeks away from the release of Captain America: Civil War, where we're going to see a new Spider-Man played by Tom Holland. But before that, let's talk about the Tobey Maguire one. Now, what makes this movie so memorable and the fact that people still talk about it after all these years? Let's start with Tobey Maguire. His Peter Parker is the most accurate Peter Parker we've gotten so far. That is Peter Parker. Now, you might be wondering, but that makes him Spider-Man too, right? Well, no, not really. The thing about Peter Parker and Spider-Man is that they are two separate characters. They are completely polar opposites of each other. Peter Parker is the nerd, he's the geek, he's the loser. Spider-Man is the hero, the guy who's loved by everybody, the guy who gets the girls, to say the least. And he is the one who is able to do everything. Peter Parker, on the other hand, can't do much. So it's a very interesting contrast. The thing about Raimi's movies is that when it comes to the nobody, which is Peter Parker, it nails that. That is the kind of Peter Parker who exists solely because that's how his character is written. The character of Peter Parker in the Raimi movies was amazing. In The Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker is shown as a really cool guy, which is not who he is. However, his portrayal of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire here, is good, but the thing is, it's not like the comics. Some people might have a problem with that, but I honestly didn't. For me, he was Spider-Man. I grew up with him as Spider-Man. When I saw the reboots, I thought it was okay, but for me, the rebooted version of Spider-Man was not the same Spider-Man I grew to love and respect, and he wasn't exactly my hero, to say the least. Also, let's talk about the fact that this movie did kind of also introduce me to rock music. Now you might be wondering, how did they do that? Well, you know the theme song of this movie? This one?
And they say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagles. Watch as we all fly away.
Yeah, that was the first rock song I heard. For real. So of course, the soundtrack for this movie is great, and of course, now that we're talking about soundtrack, let's talk about Danny Elfman. This is an iconic score. This is a score that set up a lot of superhero movies like the Hulk, including the Avengers actually. If you will watch Avengers Age of Ultron, you will see that the score was composed in part by Danny Elfman, and the score is great. And Danny Elfman has a very interesting adventurous vibe to bring to Spider-Man, which is the vibe you want to see in a Spider-Man movie. It works incredibly well. It is a very good score. It has an excellent theme. I'm still listening to it. Elfman, you did something right. I will say this for you. Next up is Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Now this is a very controversial character in many ways. Some people like his portrayal, some people don't. Why do people like his portrayal? People like his portrayal because it manages to show Green Goblin's psychotic persona. It manages to show the fact that he is an unhinged human being, and the fact that he has this thing about talking to himself in the mirror, and the fact that he is envious of certain things around him, and the fact that he can snap at any given moment. Those particular traits of Green Goblin are nailed. However, a lot of people get upset when they talk about him in the costume. Now, a lot of people compare his costume to something like a Power Rangers character. Kind of, but the point is it's not about the costume. The costume doesn't make the man, it's the man that makes the character. So in terms of the character, Norman Osborn, the Willem Dafoe's version at least, was Green Goblin. That was Green Goblin for me. I don't care about the costume. I don't care if he looks stupid in that costume. For me, the guy outside that costume, that was Green Goblin for me. And it's not Dane DeHaan in Amazing Spider-Man 2. What the hell is that? That's not Green Goblin. That's... What is that? And of course, the action sequences in this movie are brilliant. There are so many good scenes in this movie that are so engaging to watch, and yet it's like the kind of stepping stone thing. It's like, oh, if you started here, you can only get bigger with movies. And they did. It worked in some places. It didn't work in those other places. But we'll get to that movie later. But like the scenes in Times Square, the scene where the Macy Gray performance is happening and they have this huge battle, Danny Elfman's score is beautiful in this scene, by the way. The iconic shot, everything about this scene is brilliant. The final bridge sequence in which Spider-Man has to save Mary Jane as well as this tram full of children and families. Fantastic stuff. Green Goblin trying to take it down. The fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man inside the abandoned warehouse. Their bare-knuckle fight, which is the most brutal thing I've seen in well, a PG movie. It's quite brutal. It's a very brutal fight. Spider-Man gets beaten. There is so much violence in that scene, and of course you have this epic dialogue from Green Goblin.
Had you not been so selfish, your little girlfriend's death would have been quick and painless, but now that you've really pissed me off, I'm gonna finish her nice and slow.
You've really pissed me off. Really? The origin story is handled very well. Cliff Robertson and Rosemary Harris as Uncle Ben and Aunt May are pitch perfect. They are fantastic. I'm not going to review this movie like a fan, but as a critic. And just by that basis, I'm going to say this. Rosemary Harris as Aunt May steals this movie in so many scenes. It's not even funny. She is absolutely phenomenal as Aunt May. I like Sally Field, but for me, she's not Aunt May. For me, that's Aunt May. That's the caring woman. She's the one who's always there for Peter. She's the one who always takes care of him. She's the one who loves him unyieldingly. That's the Aunt May I grew up with. That's the Aunt May I know, who is like a mother figure to Peter. Uncle Ben, too. Like, he's like a father to Peter. In fact, in the end, when Peter says,
I have a father. His name was Ben Parker.
I really felt for that. I said, yes, you are correct about this. He is so much like a father figure to Peter in this movie, and I appreciated the take they took on him. And of course, I love the when great power comes great responsibility scene. It's a beautiful scene. It's wonderfully done. It makes you sadder about the fact that in the very next scene, when you see Uncle Ben, Cliff Robertson is dead. It's a sad moment. It is really riveting stuff. I can't fault that at all. I do love the origin sequence as well, the one in the cafeteria. I've always loved this scene.
Wow, great reflexes. Thanks.
No problem.
Like, that is so awesome. Wouldn't you like to go into a cafeteria sometime and have someone like just be like slip and you can just catch them and catch everything they have? And of course he gets into a fight with Flash Thompson, and of course this amazing reveal when he starts climbing the wall and he starts to discover his powers. This scene is incredible. Some people will tell you that, oh, the CGI is kind of weak, but well, it's 2002. It's pretty good CGI for 2002. It's a good job. What else is left about this movie?
Go, Webb! Fly! Up, up, and away, Webb! Shazam! Go! Go! Go, Webb, go!
Well, everything else is great. Kristen Dunst as Mary Jane Watson in this movie is way better than maybe her in a couple of other Spider-Man movies. I liked her a lot in Spider-Man 2. I liked her in Spider-Man 3, even though in Spider-Man 3, coming to the end, she got a little bit off. Again, we will talk about Spider-Man 3 later. But the fact is that in Spider-Man 1, she is a very interesting character. You care for her character. You want to know how things are going to turn out for her. She's living with this abusive dad who's treating everything really haphazardly. She's not exactly happy. She tries to take it out by being with Flash Thompson, the jock. She's not exactly being able to do that, as she does have a conversation with Peter about this several times. In fact, she even admits later that Peter is the one who always takes care of her, and that is true. Peter has always had a crush on her, but the fact that he is able to be this character, to be able to take care of her in this great way, and the fact that he is always this figure for her, he's always there for her, her character is compelling. I want to see an ending to this character, which we do, and I do like some of the turns this character takes over the course of the trilogy. Not all of them, but I do like where her character goes. I was invested in her character. I love James Franco as Harry Osborn. That's Harry Osborn for me. I do like Dane DeHaan's version of Harry Osborn, not the Green Goblin. I like the Harry Osborn version of him. That being said, I do think James Franco was the definitive Harry for me. He really got Harry correctly. He got that high school kid look who was a best friend to Peter Parker really, really well, as well as the fact that he does have that anger in him that rages after the fact that Norman Osborn dies. Everything about this movie, everything about the characters in this movie, it was nailed to perfection. J.K. Simmons in this movie is fantastic. That is J. Jonah Jameson for me. He manages to do the role so well that I was actually convinced I was looking at the comics come to life. That is a great, great casting choice right there. More reasons to love this movie. All the characters, all the plots, all the origin story, everything about this was great. I love the score. I love the special effects. I love the Green Goblin. I love Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. I liked Spider-Man as well. I can't see anything wrong with this movie. My only issue with the movie is that it does get a little silly at times, especially in scenes like this random moment right here.
Wake up, little spider. Wake up.
Okay? In the end, I love Spider-Man. This is one of my favorite childhood movies ever, and it's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. The action's great, the score is great, the acting is great, the script is great. I do love the dialogue. I love the origin story. I love everything about this movie. There are a couple of goofy moments, but those are minor issues. There is absolutely nothing with this movie that I particularly hate. I love this movie so much, and I love the sequel to this even more. I love that Sam Raimi brought a flavor to this movie that should have been I love that Sam Raimi brought a very good flavor to this movie thanks to his previous directional efforts, and that he managed to give us a movie that was able to be faithful to the character while bringing some new things. And I can't say anything more about this movie. On an ending note, I will say though, I do like the costume of Spider-Man. That's a good costume. In the end, I'm gonna give Spider-Man a 9 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please look forward to my next Spider-Man review, which is also my final Spider-Man review before Captain America Civil War, which is that of Spider-Man 3. I worked with 2 individuals on this one. It's a very funny review. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned for that, probably sometime around next week. You guys are the best. I will see you guys later. See ya.